Mac Power Users, episode 522, iCloud Family Sharing. Hello and welcome back to Mac Power Users. My name is Stephen Hackett, and I am joined as always by my friend and yours, Mr. David Sparks.
Hello, Mr. Hackett. How are you today?
I am good. How are you? You doing well?
I'm okay. I have a little cold. I was bragging to someone recently how I hadn't been sick in like a year. And then,
that did it.
That did it, right. So I think my voice is okay. I'm sorry if I sound a little off, but I'm good. I'll be hitting that cough button once in a while, but
there you go.
I feel pretty rested and good. I've been sleeping more because when you get sick, you give yourself permission to sleep in.
Yeah.
So that's pretty nice. But I want to talk about the Mac and family sharing, man.
Yeah, we've got a lot of iCloud stuff to talk about. But first, we have a situation that we need to address.
A situation?
Yeah, a situation.
Okay.
So it's been known for quite a while that you will ring your bell anytime I mention a support article or knowledge base article. There are many of them this week. But it is unknown when I should ring my bell for something that you say. And we had asked the forum to help us out, some suggestions. Star Wars, which seems like I'm going to need a new bell.
Yeah, that would be a good one.
Automation of some sort. I'm thinking the word automation, like that's the trigger.
Yeah, I could see that.
File management on the iPad.
No, please no. Please no. Not that one.
And my suggestion was anytime you mention California.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that one, though, because the older I get, the more I like to talk about being from California. I think
See, it's just an example
I'm
of how
becoming
it can go.
more into my native state as I get older, so I think that would be tedious for the listeners.
Okay.
My vote's for automation.
I think that's good.
All right.
So you mentioned the word automation. I will ring my bell. I think we should do a test run.
We got the K-base bell, got the automation bell. All right. I think the mistake we made, though, is we have two bells that have the exact same pitch.
That's true.
The musician in me hates that.
Well, the listeners will just have to go with us on this journey that the correct person is ringing it.
Yeah, I may have to look for a different pitch bell. I'm not sure about that yet. But for now, we have a plan.
That's good. Today we're getting into iCloud family sharing. And this is one of those topics that for a long time, the people had a lot of horror stories, right? This was kind of rough in the beginning. It launched way back in 2014. But honestly, it's come a long way, and I'm using it. A lot of people we know are using it. And so we thought it'd be a good time to look at this feature of iCloud and kind of explain what it does, how you get signed up for it, and maybe some of the pros and cons of moving into this new world.
Yeah, I was definitely the canary in the coal mine when this first came out.
I remember.
It was terrible. It was horrible. I wrote some posts about all the trouble I had, and I think Dr. Drang said if Sparky is unhappy, then it must really be bad or something like that. Yeah. Eventually, Apple contacted me, and they took a look at our log, and they kind of helped us sort some things out. But yeah, it was rough at the beginning, but this is something that we've really needed. I mean, we've got these iCloud accounts. It's become increasingly a part of our world. Mm-hmm. And for those of us with families, there's a lot of good to be had with a family iCloud account. I gave it such a bad rap at the beginning. We kind of stayed away from it on the show for a while, but then it's much better, and it's something I could absolutely recommend now. We've been using it happily for years, mm-hmm. and I know you have too.
Yeah, we signed up maybe 2.5 years ago, 3 years ago, and it was pretty seamless, and we're going to walk through that process. But before we get into iCloud family sharing and what it can offer, I think it's important to talk about sort of the old way of sharing purchases, because that's really the heart of iCloud family sharing for most people, is that if I buy an app, my significant other can use it on their phone. And for a long time, you could do that in sort of a shady way. And my wife and I did this for years, where we shared an Apple ID just for purchases, and then we were signed into our devices with our own personal iCloud account. So we were not sharing contacts and calendars, but we were sharing purchases, because iOS and macOS allow you still to be signed into different accounts for iCloud and the App Store and the Music Store and all of that stuff. And they are still separate logins to this day. I think a lot of people did this. Again, it's a little sketchy. It's not quite the way it's supposed to work, but a lot of people did it. And a lot of people may still be in that world now. And there is a way forward from that into iCloud family sharing. And that's what my family did.
Yeah, I question your term sketchy though, because I feel like that was kind of the only way to do it back then. This really started in the context of music because, I mean, this goes back to the iPod, really. I mean, when you had the iTunes account on your Mac, and if you bought an album, if you went to the store and bought a physical album, of course everybody in your family would be able to use it. I don't think they ever intended for you to have to buy 4 copies of the album. Or maybe they did. I don't know if they did. That wasn't very fair. So we all did that, and that we're going to call that the legacy account throughout the show today.
Yeah.
And that still has, in some respects, a dark cloud over this whole system. And it continues to be a thorn in my side, too. But it also kind of makes sense from where it grew. But eventually, Apple did try to put together these iCloud family sharing. And the people who were able to start with that have the best world right now, and they're able to, the ability to easily share and everybody have their own accounts. But they do still accommodate those sharing accounts. That's one of the reasons why I don't think it's that sketchy. I think they kind of understand that's what happens, and they've tried to build it into the system.
Yeah, I just meant sketchy in the sense that it seems like that wasn't the initial desire. Like, I think to be more fair, I would have bought an app and my wife would have bought the app too, right? From a developer perspective, maybe it's a little weird because, as we'll talk about, iCloud family sharing developers can opt in or out of. So, I don't think it's like the worst thing in the world to do this. Again, we did it for a long time, and lots of people do. It's just now we have a better system, a system that is more designed to support this sort of sharing of purchases between family members.
Yeah, and I also think that obviously the types of media that have been purchased through these IDs has changed over the years. I mean, from music to movies and video media, and then applications and books, and so because the objects you purchase have changed, the model doesn't always fit exactly as I think it was originally intended. It's really kind of a hairy mess, when you think about it too much. But we're going to try and make sense of it today and help you get your iCloud family account set up and figure out how to get the most out of it. This episode of the Mac Power Users is brought to you by our friends over 1Password. Head over to 1password.com/MPU in all caps to get 20% off your subscription. We've been talking a lot lately about 1Password for families. I'd also like to talk about 1Password for business. If you are in a workplace and you have other people that work with you, you need to get 1Password set up. It's terrible when you go into an office. I've seen this. I go to attorneys' offices. In fact, it happened fairly recently. I think I talked about on one of my podcasts how the attorney's secretary had their network password on a sticky pad attached to her monitor. So I walked out of the conference room and I knew their password for their network. That's not good. You need to set that up in your office, and you can take care of that with a 1Password for business account. It gives you, just like family sharing, it gives you the ability to have shared vaults that you can have, limited data for the employees that need it. They even have a really cool reporting feature now, so you can see who's using it. And not to be creepy, but you want to make sure the employees that are signed up for this stuff are using the 1Password account stuff, and they're not just writing passwords on sticky notes, because that is really bad. There's a whole bunch more you can do with 1Password for business, and it's a great solution for protecting your passwords, but at the same time having safe and secure security throughout your system. Now, to learn more, head over to 1password.com, and they've got a whole section there on 1Password for business. It talks through all the various features you get when you sign up for that business account. They start as low as $7.99. They've got a free 30-day trial. You can see everything you need. You've got dedicated business support. You can secure your team within minutes. They've got it all there. They're trusted by over 50,000 businesses. Head over to 1password.com/MPU in all caps to sign up. Let them know you heard about it here at the Mac Power Users, and start protecting your business today with 1Password. We thank 1Password for their support of the Mac Power Users for all these years and protecting Stephen and my passwords at the same time.
So I thought we could start today by walking through some of the features of iCloud family sharing. It is
Yeah.
a umbrella term, just like iCloud itself is. Our iCloud is a bunch of individual related features. Family sharing is as well. I thought it'd be a good place to start because we could talk about what Apple offers its customers who sign up for this. Because once you understand what it can do, it may seem either more or less attractive. And I'll say off the top, there are going to be a whole bunch of support articles in the show notes. And this is a criticism I have the way Apple's site is set up. There's not like one really clear place to read about all of this stuff. There's the marketing page, but then there's also like a whole bunch of support documents that address different parts of the system. And so we've done our best to find the corresponding pages for the sections that we're talking about. So there's a lot of stuff there, but it kind of follows with our conversation.
Yeah, it seems like with a lot of Apple stuff that they have level 1 explanation on the marketing page and they have level 10 explanation on the K-base.
Yeah.
And there's no level 5. And that's one of the reasons the Mac Power Users exist, frankly, is to try and figure out a little bit deeper without necessarily going into how do we hack this with the terminal.
Right. Also, you rang the bell when you said K-base, so now we're like inside out from...
I know, man. I know.
So a couple of basics here. Family sharing is limited to 6 people. And if you've got more than 6 people, I think the official answer is you got to split into 2 families. Like I haven't found a good solution for adding more than 6. But for most people, I think that should be fine. We will talk about creating Apple IDs for kids because there's sort of different types of Apple IDs now for children under 13, children between 13 and 18, and then adults. All of the ages we're going to talk about are U.S. specific. Other countries' laws may dictate that the age of 13 here is the age of 12 somewhere else. So we're kind of speaking in sort of the U.S. terms as far as the ages.
Yeah.
One of the most basic features, I think the easiest to understand, is shared storage. So everyone gets that very minuscule 5 gigabytes with your iCloud account. We've complained about that. Everyone has. It's a real bummer. So in that world, a lot of people are buying additional iCloud storage. And with family sharing, you can combine that. So instead of me paying 99 cents a month for my 50 gigs and my wife spending 99 cents for hers, then if that covers everything we need to do, we can just pay it once and then we share that storage. That does not mean that I see everything that she puts into iCloud. It's still our own data, right? It doesn't share everything. It just takes data out of that pool of data. I think about it in the same way as maybe a family cell phone service. Hey, you have 10 gigabytes across all of your devices a month. Sort of the same thing. You just have this bucket of bits and you can put your things into it and pull your things out of it independent of anybody else.
Yeah, agreed. And I just, we can just insert the discussion we've had a million times about having to pay for that initial tier.
Yeah.
Just put it in right here. It's with the family plans, 50 gigs for 99 cents a month. I really wish that was you just got 50 gigs and you didn't pay until you got to 200. But we're not going to bang on about that, but that's a discussion.
Yeah.
There is also, I think, a lot of space between 200 and 2 terabyte.
Yeah,
and it seems like they could do something about that because I think for a lot of people, this comes down to photo storage, and 200 gigabyte is probably not enough, but 2 terabyte is way too much.
Right. And the way the pricing is, there's a gap too. The 200 gigabytes is $2.99 a month. The 2 terabytes is what I pay for is $10 a month. Why isn't there a terabyte for $5 or $6? Like it's just right there in the middle. And I'm sure they have lots of data about the amounts that people sign up for. But for like my family, my wife and I, and then we have our oldest son has an Apple ID and the kid's iPad is signed in with his. We're using about 490 gigs worth of stuff. And that means that I'm paying for 2 terabytes, even though I don't need that. So I find that a little frustrating because I'd love to pay half what I pay and still have lots of additional space. Any system, people will fall sort of in the in-betweens. But that's a big jump from 200 to 2 terabytes.
Yeah, and I have a problem at the opposite end because I have 2 children that have fairly recent iPhones that take big pictures and video, and they both are very active in school with video production and whatnot. So they're constantly shooting 4K and photos. And we are not at 2 terabytes yet, but I can see
Oh
us
boy.
getting closer to it. And I'm going to wonder what's going to happen when I get over 2 terabytes. I mean, I would like to see, I don't want to break it up and
Hmm.
have the kids have their own accounts. I would like to be able to pay even just a little bit more to get 3 terabytes or something like that. So
Sure.
there's definitely room in this pricing tier to, deal with people that need more data, people that are more in the middle. And if I had a magic wand, that would be something I would fix. That would almost be the thing I would fix at Apple right now. If I had one thing to fix, it wouldn't be the iPad file system. It would be the that free tier
Hmm.
getting bigger and just making it more friendly to consumers in terms of what storage they get.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people who are just on individual plans, they're just shooting pictures with one device. The 50 gigs may be enough, but it gets expensive quickly. And again, you may be paying for a lot more than you actually need, which is a bummer. I will give Apple credit. All the reporting around this, if you look in system preferences on the Mac or settings on iOS, you can really see like how much each person is using in your storage, how it's broken down. Like all that's really good. Like you can make informed decisions. But to your point, there should just be more options when it's time to change.
And also, to be fair, Apple is really good about value pricing this on a family plan, that you get a good deal with this stuff. Many of the things we're going to talk about today, you can buy individually, and upping it to a family plan is often very little or no extra money to have it shared with the whole family. There's a lot of incentive to put your family into a family plan.
Yeah, so let's keep rolling through the features of this. Sort of the second biggest one in my mind is shared purchases. Maybe actually more important to some people than the storage. And what this means is that books, media, so TV shows, movies, and apps purchased by one family member can be accessed by all the other family members. So if I go out and I purchase Carrot Weather, which we spoke about a couple episodes ago, it's $4.99 or whatever it is. Then my wife can go into the App Store and download it on her phone without repaying the $4.99. And it's really, I think it's actually really nicely integrated with the App Store. You can go to the Purchase tab in the App Store or TV or Apple Books, whatever App Store you're in, and select the family member whose collection you want to browse, and then just download or play the content that you choose. If you try to download something, it just directly it'll say, hey, this has already been purchased by another family member. Do you want to download it? And you can keep some purchases private by choosing to hide individual items. And so, if you bought an app or a piece of media that you don't want your family to see, then you can hide it in, again, its corresponding store. There are some limitations to this, things like in-app purchases and third-party subscriptions. So again, Carrot Weather is a paid app, but it has a in-app purchase. Those are not shared. So if I want Carrot Weather Premium and my wife does too, we're each paying that subscription. And while I know there's a lot of subscription fatigue, I feel like this is a pretty okay balance from the developer perspective, because most apps aren't paid up front anymore. They're free with subscription. And if you got 6 people using one subscription for a weather app, for instance, that data gets expensive quickly on their end. So I feel relatively okay with this balance, even in our current climate where people are sort of feisty about subscriptions. I feel like Apple struck the best deal they could.
Stephen, is there one artist where you would want to hide the fact that you purchased their media from the rest of your family?
Now, my wife
I need
knows
to know.
that I love a bunch of music that I shouldn't, so that's fine.
I can think of one. I feel like I have this weird love of John Denver music, which is not like on brand for me at all. But I think it's because I grew up, my grandmother used to listen to it all the time. I really don't want my family to know that I've downloaded John Denver music. I think I might hide that one.
That's fair. Of course, now in the world of Apple Music, it gets trickier. But
Yeah,
if you
yeah,
if
exactly.
you if you download, say that you're kind of in a 17 or 18 and you download a dating app, you don't want your parents to know,
Yeah.
that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So that's purchases. Again, works for books, movies, TV shows, apps. They've really fleshed this out across their whole ecosystem of content.
Something that needs to get fixed on this, though, I feel like, is that you're right. It's easy enough to go browse somebody else's purchase history. But what they don't do is show you when you're shopping that someone in your family group has already purchased an app. So you go through this process of, authorizing a purchase, and then it tells you at the end, oh,
Right.
hey, wait a second, somebody else bought this, so you don't have to buy it again. And I always get nervous when I do that. Like I have Logic, and Final Cut that I've purchased, and those are quite expensive. And my kids want to download them to their computers on their accounts, and they always freak out. They're like, "Dad, this is a $300 purchase. Are you sure?" And then I start to get nervous, and it's like playing the slot machine. Is it going to come up okay? And it does every time, but I feel like that interface would be well served if they can track it enough to give me a list of what they bought. Can't they just run that list against the store when I go in to make a purchase, so I don't have to go through that again?
Yeah, I think you're right. We've run into that with downloading movies, right? It's like, oh, did we buy this one? And then you're only told after you've basically walked through the whole process. I agree. I would like to see the little download icon they use elsewhere, maybe the little family icon in it. Like this is available to you because someone else has already paid for it.
And this is an example of something that's been kind of wrong with it since the beginning, and I just don't see that it's ever going to get fixed anytime soon.
Yeah, I'm kind of worried too.
Yeah, but you can share this media, which is great, and I'm with you. I think the balance between in-app purchases and apps is okay. It's going to become more. You're going to feel it more going into the future because more and more apps are going to be subscription based. But what are you going to do?
Mm-hmm. So speaking of subscriptions, the next feature is Apple Music for families. So Apple Music in and of itself runs, $9.99 a month. If you're a student, it's $4.99 a month, which is cool. And if you have family sharing set up, you can enable Apple Music for families. It's $14.99 a month, again, up to 6 people. Everyone has their own libraries, so anything you add from Apple Music into your library is just added under your Apple ID, and it's all completely separate. So my wife can have her library, I can have mine, and there's really no intermixing that. So $14.99 a month for 2 people. We both like Apple Music. We would both probably pay for it. So having it combined was a great feature for us, and it's this is basically why I signed up for family sharing. Is when I felt like it was stable, and then this was sort of announced. It's like, okay, this is something that we want to do.
And it all feeds into itself because if you have a HomePod, the Apple Music account, you can just shout out music and it starts playing.
Right.
I was actually a subscriber to Beats Music before Apple purchased them because I liked their model. They had kind of the human created playlists, and for someone who likes jazz, that's actually kind of good. And when Apple bought them, I was pleased, but the $15, this just varies for everyone. Katie and I used to always argue about this because she didn't, she had a very small music library. But for me, this $14.99 has been a very good investment. Everybody in my family loves music. We all are constantly listening to new music and sharing it with each other. And we listen to a lot of different genres of music. And just recently, I was kind of cataloging my backups, and I got the drives that had my old iTunes library on it. Mm-hmm. And I marveled that, I had spent all that time ripping those discs over the years. And these days, when a new Mac comes in the house or when I'm setting something up, I don't use any of that music anymore. I just download it again as part of my Apple Music account. I mean, I've got all that stored music I saved, but I don't actually use it under Fire anymore because everything in there was in Apple Music plus so much more. And that's one thing I think Apple did a really good job with. And I know people like Spotify and other ones as well, and I'm not going to take that away from you. Some of those are great, but I think Apple has made a very compelling case for their music service. And at $15 a month for your whole family, I think they were the first to show up with that price. I think everybody's followed at this point.
Mm-hmm.
But that's a pretty good deal. $15 a month for all the music in the world, basically.
Right. Yeah, Spotify is exactly the same deal. $14.99 a month for 6 accounts. So they are comparable to their competition, and I think that it is. I think Apple Music is sort of a tangent. It's sort of like low key one of the best Apple services they have. Like, it has been rock solid for a really long time. The library is incredible. If you like the playlist and the curation, that's all really good. It's just solid all the way around. And I was very hesitant to move to music streaming. I was kind of like Katie. I was like, I don't explore any music a bunch, but I made the changeover years ago, and I've explored more music because of it. And I've really enjoyed having all of my music available to me on all my devices. That is a really good feature for me.
I woke up like a couple weeks ago with a Chuck Mangione song in my head. And you don't even probably know who Chuck Mangione is.
Sorry.
An artist with the flugelhorn. But anyway, a song I hadn't heard since like 1980 something. And for whatever reason, you wake up and you hear the song. I'm like, wow, that was a great song. And then, like, in a few seconds, I had it playing in my HomePod. And
that's cool.
It is really amazing. I'm just smiling now thinking about it. So yeah, good job, Apple. If you guys like music and you've got a family account, that $15 is a very easy spend.
Mm-hmm.
What I would recommend if you're going to do it, though, is spend some time learning the tools. The binary heart system now, you can still rate it. It's kind of hard to find, but you can still do some very granular stuff. But if you want to get into Apple Music, kind of go with the current, and that's kind of the either like it or you don't like it, and just kind of go with their algorithm for a while, and it does a pretty good job of servicing new music for you. They call it the A-list, and they have like one for jazz. They have whatever type of music you like. And if you just go into those, I always find something new and interesting in those lists that with artists that I've never heard of before. And after having done this for years, it's remarkable to me how many new artists I've discovered through that.
Yeah, it's fantastic. And it does such a good job of understanding what you like. And again, using the heart system, what you've added to your library to surface stuff that maybe you've never heard, but that you will probably like. Like, I've expanded my horizons because of it, which is pretty cool. So moving on to some other Apple services, Apple Arcade, Apple News Plus, Apple TV Plus, they all get pulled into family sharing and currently all at the same price. So if you sign up for Apple Arcade, which is $4.99 a month, Apple News Plus, which I'm not sure how many people are doing, $9.99 a month, Apple TV Plus, $4.99 a month, but currently free. If you've purchased an Apple device, you get it free for a year. Though, if you pay for those services, everyone in your family group automatically gets them. There's not an additional cost like there is to Apple Music. If I pay for Apple Arcade, my family group gets it just automatically, which I think is really cool. The same thing goes for Apple TV channels. Like, if you buy HBO through the TV app, everyone gets access to that. Pricing varies on those things. I have not used any of that, but if you are into that, then this automatically gets kind of swept up into your family sharing automatically.
Yeah. And this is what I was talking about earlier. Like, you get all this for free. Everybody in the family gets it. Whereas opposed if, you had individual accounts, you'd be paying for Apple Arcade for every person.
Yep.
So it makes it really hard not to set up a family sharing account if you want to take advantage of any of these services. Now, how many of those are you in on at this point? Are you, let me guess, Apple Arcade, no?
No.
Apple News Plus, no?
No.
Apple TV Plus, free because you bought something?
Yep.
So they're not making much money off of you.
Well, I mean, I bought a Mac Pro, so they're fine.
Yeah, there you go. That's true.
What about you?
The arcade, yes. I enjoy the arcade, and my kids do too. The Apple News, I could make a case for it, but I just don't have enough time to keep up with all those publications. And the Apple TV Plus I have because I bought an iPhone, but I don't watch it very much. I don't know where I'm going to be on Apple TV Plus when I have to start paying for it.
Yeah, there are a couple of shows that I really enjoyed, but I will probably pay for it to check those shows out and then drop it and then kind of come on and off it like other people do with Netflix and Hulu. Apple TV Plus will probably land there for me because I don't think they're going to extend the trial to a second year, no matter how many Mac Pros I buy.
Yeah, agreed. The arcade, I feel like, is the best deal.
I think so too.
There are so many good games in there, and In general, like when we have family over, I put a lot of them on the Apple TV as well, and we have a controller, and they're all just good, kind of clean games. I don't know how else to put it. And they don't bug you for money. So if you've got a kid that keeps wanting to buy cold coins in the game of choice, it may be cheaper just to get an Apple Arcade account and say, okay, you can play anything in the arcade,
Yeah.
and then you're
Yeah.
in for $5 a month and no more.
Yep.
Okay, but that comes with the family account, and when you get the family account, you get that stuff for free. If you really like, maybe you've got you and your family enjoy the New Yorker, $10 a month, you get it for everybody in the family. So like I said, I think this stuff is there for you if you want it, and fortunately, you don't have to buy any of it if you don't want it. I do wish they had combined some of this stuff, though. I'm surprised there's not like a pricing plan that puts it all together for you.
Yeah. I mean, maybe after the Apple TV Plus trial ends, but I'm
Yeah.
surprised too. I really thought they would have a bundle by now.
Yeah.
There are a couple of sort of miscellaneous iCloud family sharing features. The first is an automatic shared photo album. So when you set up a family group, a shared album is automatically created in the Photos app for everyone's devices. Anyone can add photos, videos, comments, etc. This is not a shared photo library. It's just a shared album. But this comes with some real limitations, doesn't it?
Yeah. I mean, the problem is the file size. I mean, I've got a bunch of these on my phone that I didn't even create. My kids take my phone and then they make shared albums and they go find pictures of them when they were little and they send it to themselves this way. And I always have to tell them, you're not getting a full res image when you do this. On Apple's support site, they've got an article and it says, when shared photos taken with standard point and shoot cameras, SLR, so your fancy camera, iOS devices, including your iPhone, the image is limited to 2048 pixels along the long edge. So whatever the longest edge of it is, 2048 pixels. So they're reducing the image in size. Then I got asking myself, okay, well, how big is a 12 megabyte image in pixels? And with a little bit of snooping, I found out that in general, they're 4288 by 2848. So you're basically cutting the picture to about a quarter of the size.
Yeah, that's a real bummer.
When you put it in sharing. So you think that like when we do these family events and we all share in one gallery, that's great that we have the images, but we don't have the full size image. And for whatever reason they have, I mean, I feel like there's a couple ways this whole thing falls down. First of all, as Stephen pointed out earlier, you can't share a library. So there is no library sharing. You've got to put together these albums if you want to share pictures. And then you get a significantly smaller size image when you share it, which is fine to look at on your phone. But if you pick one of these pictures that was shared with you via a shared gallery and you print it out to a 5x7, it's not going to look as good as the original image did. There's a couple ways around it. What we've come to do in our family is that, when we do have a family event, a lot of times we'll pick some of the better pictures and we'll airdrop to each other.
Mm-hmm.
AirDrop gets you full res. You can also send it via messages or mail, or almost any of the third-party picture apps will send a full-size image. But I have to, question or scratch my head a little bit. If you're going to have these shared albums, I could even understand sharing them at the reduced size, but at least give the user the ability to request a full size if they want.
Yeah, I mean, it is really upsetting that this is how it works, and we've been banging our drums about it for a long time. And every year, I think it's the year they're going to fix it, but every year I'm disappointed.
Well, I mean, if you think about it, the image is stored on Apple's servers with the user. So I have a picture that I take of me and Steven at WWDC, and it's full-size image. We have a shared album, so he sees it, and he wants to print it. Maybe you want to make it really big and put it on your mantelpiece. Picture of me,
I do. Mm-hmm.
But you've got this minimal size. But why wouldn't there be a user interface element where you could say, okay, this is what I'm going to print. Go ahead and give me the full size on this one. Then it could tap into my iCloud storage and give it to you because it has it. It's already shared it to make the shared album. I mean, it seems to me like there's a solution that doesn't kill their servers. I mean, the flip side would be say just make everything full size. But, quite often the smaller size is good enough. But I don't know. I feel like there's a way to do this without crushing their storage.
Mm-hmm. Same.
Yeah. But both of that, that's kind of the micro problem. The macro problem is we just can't share libraries. So my wife and I have these weird libraries that are like two ships passing in the night. We've
Mm-hmm.
got a bunch of pictures we took when we went to the same thing, but we don't have the same pictures unless we took the time to make a shared album with the reduced size images. And we've got years of our life now that way.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. I think a lot of people do.
I would really like to see that problem get solved.
A couple other miscellaneous features. There's screen time data can be shared between family members. We're going to talk more about that in a few minutes, so we'll come back to that. But another one is the Find My service, which is the new version that merged Find My Friends and Find My iPhone. So you now get basically a couple of tabs in the app. You get people and then devices, which I really like that they're blended. So I can see, like, if my wife thinks she left her phone at the restaurant, I can just look at Find My on my phone. I don't have to like log in to Find My iPhone as her. That dance you used to have to do.
Yep.
Now has been resolved, which is super convenient.
Yeah, as parents, we've all had to do that with the old app where our kids couldn't find something. So we had to log in as them into the Find My app, and it was a complete pain in the neck. They've made this a lot better. I have bemoaned the loss of the widget on the Mac, but
Yes,
they do have an app. And every time this comes up, I mention it again. But if you have this service turned on, I think it's a really good idea to have it turned on. And go ahead and feel free to use the notifications and some of the automation stuff they put in there. Like, I did it. I did.
You did.
But like, for instance, you can have it like when your spouse is leaving work, have it give you a notification so you can have dinner on the table. That's one of the things I do on the nights I cook dinner. But it's really, really convenient. And I always just made it a condition with my kids. I pay the phone bill and it's like, I just get to see where you are. That's all there is to it. And my kids, one's in college and they still don't really push back on it at all because I don't use it like a creep. But if I ever do need to see where they are, I can see where they are. And it's very convenient.
Yeah, it's really convenient. And now with iOS 13, they are alerted if you set notification about their location, which I think is a good privacy trade-off, even within a family.
Yeah.
You also get a family calendar, family reminders list. So all can be opted out of. The shared reminders list, I think, is useful. Like, I don't use reminders as my go-to task manager, but my wife and I have now several shared lists between us for like groceries or home projects, because it syncs and it's on our phones and it works so well with Siri. It's a good app for the way that we want to use it.
Yeah, man, it's so hard with a shared calendar if your family doesn't get it, and they start putting a bunch of events on there that are not shared family events.
It's taken
That's
years
rough.
of my life, David. Years of my life to get that right in my household.
It's still a battle, man. It's still a battle.
Well, you're a crazy person when it comes to your calendars. So
yeah, I am.
Of course, all purchases are made on a central debit or credit card, and there's some protection around that, which we'll talk about in a minute with kids. But it makes it nice, right? We've all had the experience where someone's debit card gets replaced, and you're like, for like a month, you figure out whose debit card was used for what. This is one less thing you have to worry about. Family sharing is just on one central card, so the billing is all in one place. You can see it all in one statement. This episode of Mac Power Users is brought to you by the Omni Group. Today I want to talk about OmniFocus for the web. Of course, a bunch of us are using iPhones and iPads, but a lot of people are stuck using that PC at work. And if you rely on OmniFocus for your tasks, then there's that disconnect there, right? That your tasks are sort of isolated on your iOS devices. The Omni Group has solved this with OmniFocus for the web. And my favorite thing about this is that it's actually really full featured. It looks awesome, like as you would expect anything from the Omni Group to look, but the features that they've brought to the web cover everyone's needs. So of course you have inbox and projects, but you get your tags and your notes. You get the flagged perspective, which I know is so important to how so many people work. You get your forecast, which I absolutely love, view options, and of course it all syncs securely with the Omni Group's wonderful back end. The Omni Group is also really good about pricing options. They know that some people have purchased OmniFocus, maybe in the past, or maybe you are subscribing to it. And if you've purchased it, you can just add on the web for $4.99 a month. So you don't have to go out and switch to the subscription and then add this on. They're respectful of how you want to purchase and use their tools, the flexibility just blows me away. They're so good at it. And if you are an OmniFocus user, this is definitely something to look at. So you have your tasks on any Mac or PC. You can just log on online and check them out. Again, if you've purchased OmniFocus, it's just $4.99 a month. You can learn more on their website, and you want to head over to their website with this very special URL. That is omnigroup.com/power users. Go check out OmniFocus. Go check it out for the web and all the other great tools that the Omni Group makes. They're serious about productivity on the Mac, iPhone, iPad, and beyond. Once again, that's omnigroup.com/power users.
All right, so we've been having a lot of fun talking about what you can share. What can't you share?
Yeah, so there are some things that are exempt from this system. We mentioned in-app subscriptions, like third-party subscriptions, in-app purchases, all of that stuff. Again, that's kind of what the world is moving to. So there's an argument that maybe this will be less useful in the future, but that's the big one for most people. Of course, if you are using Apple Music, you do need to upgrade to the family version. You can't share an individual or student Apple Music subscription. And you can't use this to download things that are no longer on the App Store or the iTunes Store. So you may have come across this where an app you used is pulled. You can't use family sharing to get around that. If someone else has it, you can't go to their history and download it. If it's removed from the store, it's been removed. And the same thing for those hidden items we talked about. So if David has music he's ashamed of or an app he's ashamed of and he hides it, his family can't see that. If they want to buy that app, then they're going to have to buy it.
Got to buy John Denver twice.
That's right. Which is the whole, I guess, your whole game plan, right?
There we go.
And some developers can opt out of family sharing. It is an option for developers. There's a little badge on the App Store that says if an app is compatible with family sharing. I tried looking, I looked through my purchases, and I really couldn't find, I don't think I found a single one that was opted out of family sharing, but it is an option.
Very few. Yeah. Very few.
Very few. And, for me, I think all these limitations make sense. I can see Apple's perspective. I can see the developer perspective, and I think I'm pretty okay with all of them.
Yeah, I am too. I do think that as the subscription world takes over, the shared purchase history isn't going to be as valuable as it was at the beginning. But, we'll just have to see how it all evolves.
Yeah.
And I do think some of these developers could come up with a subscription model that could work for multiple users. So, I mean, it's not entirely a closed door.
Yeah, and I could see Apple maybe in the future doing like what they do with Apple Music. So say that Carrot Weather is $4.99 a month. Then maybe if you want the family version, maybe there's an option for the developer to make it $6.99. So I'm not paying twice. I'm paying like 1.5.
Yeah.
That seems like a reasonable trade-off, and maybe Apple could open that door and leave it for developers to walk through. But I could see that as a potential solution for apps that you want to use with a in-app subscription that's fair to everybody.
Yeah. The real thorn in my side that I mentioned earlier in the show really is, though, these legacy shared accounts.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a situation that really just punishes the oldest Apple fans.
Yeah.
Because, those of us that started with iTunes accounts when we just had a single device, and that was the road to madness. And since that we were buying music from Apple, and then we had a shared account, maybe, your significant other got one, and then you build this corpus of purchased media that you don't want to part with, but at the same time, it's not really yours. It's a shared account. And currently, and for a long time now, Apple has had a thing where you can, when you set up your account, you can say, for my calendar and email and everything, use my iCloud account. But for all of my iTunes and media purchases and whatnot, use this legacy shared account that we've had. And so the person who really gets punished for this is the founder of the family sharing account. and it'd probably be me and Steven in our cases, because you've got this separate account, and it really is kind of a mess. Like I know in my case, one of the reasons why I didn't just like give up on it and just start buying everything on my own account is because we watched a lot of this media on the Apple TV, and up until just this past September, switching accounts on the Apple TV was very difficult.
Yep.
And so, if I'd started purchasing the media on my account, then the family wouldn't have been. It was just a mess, right? So we kept this legacy account, and now it's got a lot of media in it that we purchased over the years, and apps as well. The apps don't hurt as much, but the media does. Like all of the various Star Wars and whatever, and the kids stuff that they've bought over the years. It really is kind of a mess. So we've got, for 4 people, we have 5 accounts, and I really don't like that. And it is kind of confusing, and I appreciate that Apple has made affordances to allow us to continue to use that media we bought before they really made a system that was compelling to have individual accounts for individual users. But we still have this problem kind of dragging along with us.
I think that's well said.
Yeah, it seems like it's just like it just gets worse the more I use it, but trying to stop using it is quite difficult. I was thinking about now with the Apple TV, the ability to switch accounts on the Apple TV, maybe it's time for me to just give up on that. But we'll see. We'll see. I think the solution for it in the long run is to just say, you can take one of these legacy accounts. In fact, the one I have is attached to an email that I don't even have anymore, but I can't seem to get Apple to switch it for me. You could combine them into one account one time. Like, what if I could take all these movie purchases and just drop them into my iCloud account? But then, I'm sure there are lawyers and contracts that prohibit that from happening. But boy, it sure would be nice if we could do that once and just be done with that stuff.
Yeah. I mean, I've got the same thing where I'm using that legacy account for my purchases, and they're all shared, but I'd like to just use one Apple ID for everything like my wife gets to do. So
yeah, exactly.
It's a little bit tricky, and even though it does sort of punish, like you said, the founder or the family, especially if you have this legacy account, it all works, right? Like it's not busted. It all does what it's supposed to do, but it could be a little bit cleaner.
Yeah, and I don't envy the programmers that have to work around that too.
No.
I mean, to make the apps work with 2 different Apple IDs, and it's just something it's just something that just itches at me every time I deal with it, which is quite often. I will say though, in recent years, it hasn't been nearly the problem it was when they first started implementing this system, where like you would get continued and repeated requests for authorizations. I mean, for years, that was a very common problem. When you had a legacy account, it would keep asking you for the password over and over again. And I haven't had to do that to me in a long time. So I think they've kind of got the bugs ironed out of that system, but I still don't like it.
So do we want to talk a little bit about how to get all this set up?
Yeah, totally.
Okay. So again,
it's not that hard though, right?
No, it's really not. And there's an support article in the in the show notes for how to set this up, but it's actually pretty straightforward. You can do it from iPhone, iPad, Mac. You can only be in one family at a time, so just keep that in mind. You can't be like if you can't be with your spouse and kids and be in someone else's. Like if you want a parent in there, you've got to bring them into yours. And really critically, it's really designed for everyone to have their own Apple ID. And we'll talk about kids' IDs in a second, but it's really important that if you do this, you move into a world where everyone has their own. I've got friends who maybe they share an Apple ID just for everything, right? Sync and messages and everything. And that's not how this is designed. It's really designed for separate Apple IDs that kind of get tied together through this system. And so you need to make sure.
Can I interrupt there for 1 second though? 2 points. First of all, when you start to describe why you would need 2 separate sets of families, I started to get really nervous for a minute, but you got out of that well.
Thank you.
But the other thing is the point you make, and we get the emails all the time. I'm sure we'll get some emails after the show publishes and forum posts. A lot of times folks will write and say, you know what, my wife and I or my husband and I just share one ID and we've done it for years and it's no problem. So, we don't need any of this fancy stuff. How do you respond to that?
I mean, if that's how you want to work, then you actually don't need family sharing for any of this, right? Because you're just using to Apple, you're just one person, right? But if you want to move to this world, so say that the husband and wife use one account, but then they want to add a kid to the thing, then you've got to make sure that you kind of know what you're doing going into this. It would still work, but Apple's recommendation is that everyone has their own. But hey, you do you. If you're sharing that Apple ID and it works, then this doesn't really compel you to change that.
But I would argue you're missing out on a lot.
Yeah.
If you do that, because you don't have your own email, you don't have your own calendar, you don't have your own contacts database, and I do think that I guess it depends on what's going on in your life, but I think that can be an issue.
Yeah, I don't want to share all that. And my wife doesn't want to see all my stuff, know. But anyways, so ideally everyone has their own Apple ID, and again, you can, if you're starting from zero, so it's just you and a spouse, you have separate Apple IDs, you go into settings /iCloud on iOS or the system preference pane on Mac OS, and you start adding people. So you give it their Apple ID. Invites are sent via iMessage, or you can just hand them your device and have them log in with their Apple ID and password. It doesn't log you into their ID. It's just authenticating that, hey, this person is knowingly entering your family group. And you can do this anytime. So if you have a kid come along, you need to add somebody, you can just go back in and add people later on. You don't have to do it all on day one. So if you've got, a kid with a device and your spouse doesn't need this, or you don't add them yet, you could just be you and your kid, and then you could add your spouse later, or vice versa, however it happens in your life. This is a flexible system. And if you're invited, you basically just open the link, confirm your Apple ID and password. And then once you have those people in the family sharing settings, you can basically turn on or off features as you need them. And so if you don't need the, if you don't need a individual component of this, you can simply go in there and turn it off. So, for instance, looking at my family, we have everything on except Apple Arcade and Apple News, because we don't subscribe to those, and I actually have the screen time one turned off. The way that I have my kids' iPad set up, I'm using screen time locally on that, but I don't necessarily want to share be able to do that for my device. I found that was kind of buggy, honestly, when it first rolled out. So I've just left the screen time off, but everything else is on, and you can go in here and you can see what the individual settings are. So if I click on the iCloud storage, I can see the storage plan and how much space we're using, etc. So it's all kind of managed from this central point. If for some reason you need to leave a family group, it's also pretty straightforward. You can basically, if you're the regular member, you can go into the family sharing on your device and hit leave, and then you're no longer in the family. Or you can remove people if you're the admin, but you lose access to any shared content, right? Any shared purchases, the Apple Music account, all that stuff will basically be turned off for you if you leave.
Yeah. So when your kids, hopefully someday, leave the nest and go start their own families, their purchases are leaving with them.
It's like the rite of passage for a kid growing up in an Apple household, right? Like
there you go.
You're grown up now.
Sad. I'll be so sad to see all that, Hannah Montana music leave my library.
That's a real bummer.
Yeah.
There are a couple of just things to be aware of. So the first is, if your Apple ID is the one being used to share purchases and you don't want to be in the family anymore, then basically you basically turn off the whole family account all at once, and all the ties between the people are dissolved. And after you leave the family group, you can start your own family or create a new group or whatever you need to do, but you can only be in one at a time. So you've got to leave the one you're in, destroy the one you're in, and then you can move on. And kids with Apple IDs, if they're under 13, Apple doesn't allow you to remove a child of that age. And so if you add a child that young to the family sharing group, they're there to stay until they're 13. I assume this is a side effect of some law that I haven't read, but this is a little awkward, I think,
Yeah.
and because people are kind of stuck. You can disband and rebuild the entire family. That's a lot of hoops to jump through.
I call this the John Voorhees rule.
It is both. I think both he and Serenity Caldwell in the past created test kids under 13 to like work out this feature, and now they're stuck with them in their family
For
sharing
13
account.
years.
Which is incredible.
Yeah. Or they could nuke their entire family sharing account and start over
Sure.
again. But that's not necessarily what you want to do.
No, I mean that's a bunch of work. And so really the joining and leaving and the setting up, it's all really straightforward. I think the UI is a little bit better on iOS. In Catalina, they did a lot to this system preference pane. But I think it's a little bit easier to manage this, on an iPhone or iPad. When I set it up, I did it on my iPad and it went really smoothly. And the way I did it, I just did it with my wife one night. The kids went to bed and I said, hey, come sit with me in my office. We're going to do all of this, while everyone's here. And it really walks you through the process. It holds your hand through it in a way that makes it pretty simple. In the past, as horror stories, a lot of them were around this, where it wasn't clear what you were doing. The language is confusing in places, but they've really done a good job at making it really clear what you're doing by tapping these buttons.
Yep, agreed. This episode of the Mac Power Users is brought to you by Hover. Head over to hover.com/MPU. Make a name for yourself and get 10% off any domain. We're going to take a quick break to talk about Hover. It's one of our longest running sponsors. When you have that one big idea, where do you go? For a lot of people, Hover is that big leap because your business starts with a domain. That's true for me personally. When I started thinking about, going out on my own as a lawyer, one of the first things I did was buy a domain, and it was so empowering. I went to hover.com, where they have over 300 domain extensions to choose from. No matter what you want to build, there's a domain name waiting for it. And they have excellent technical support to answer any question you may have, and they're dedicated to getting you online, not upselling you. Hover has free Who is privacy, so the bad guys don't get your information, a very clean UX UI, monthly sales on popular top-level domains, and they don't make it a game where you feel like they're trying to trick you into buying extra stuff. They make it really easy to get exactly what you need at a price that you can afford. It's easy to see why Hover is the popular choice for people starting businesses. Like I was saying earlier, I set up my domain for my legal practice before I even had one, before I left, and it felt really great setting that up. I've had it for many years now, and I just loved that Hover was there for me when I needed it. And they were also there for me with my kids when my kids were very young. I didn't do it when they were born because I wasn't smart enough to do this yet. But when they were very young, I went on Hover and I bought domains for their names. So I now have their names with .coms for each one of them. So when they get out in the world and they want to set up their internet presence, we're all set for them. And all that was done through Hover, very easy to do and easy to manage. One of the things I like about it is the management pane. I can go in there at any time to renew domains. In fact, I just renewed the MacPowerUsers.com through Hover, so I guess you guys are stuck with us a little bit longer. And they just make it super easy. Whether you want to buy it for 1 year or 5 years, they've got ways to do that. You can buy your domain and start using it today. Go to hover.com/MPU and get 10% discount on all new purchases. Once again, hover.com/MPU. Get your domain name. Let them know you heard about it here at the Mac Power Users. And our thanks to Hover for their support of this show and Relay FM.
So let's get into Apple IDs and kids. And I want to say off the top, this is a huge topic. Parental controls on macOS and iOS, it's like a whole world unto themselves. It's not really what this topic is. I think it's a topic we may do in the future. Let us know if that's something that you'd be interested in. But
yeah,
I'm just going to kind of like leave a link in the show notes and let people go explore that. Because I really want to talk about the Apple ID system and how it works if a kid is under 13. Again, at least in the US, other countries, the age may be different.
Yeah, I think this is one of the big benefits of family sharing. We've talked about kind of the practical media sharing, but you also, as a parent of children, you want some ability to have control without being an overbearing parent.
Sure.
And I think the Apple system does a pretty good job of walking that line. if the child's under 13, they can't create the ID on their own, but a family organizer can provide verified parental consent and create an Apple ID on the child's behalf. And
Right.
I guess that's how you did it for your kids, right?
Yeah. So basically, in that family sharing setting area, you go to add a person, you say it's a child, you say, yes, I'm the parent, I have permission to give consent. And a note in Apple's details is like, don't like put the kid's actual age in there, because as they grow older and you want to hand the Apple ID over to them, then they need to be the right age when you do that. So make sure that's all done correctly. And again, you can do it later. So if kids come along later, you can just add them as they come. It's pretty straightforward to add them. But you as the parent or the guardian, that's your responsibility.
Yeah, when they first started doing in-app purchases in the App Store, there was an issue where parents were getting thousands of dollars in in-app purchase bills at the end of the month
Yeah.
because the kids found some game. And man, I don't know if I would have still been alive if I did that to my parents, but they had some problems. So Apple put in this system about ask to buy, which is a great idea on a family sharing plan. Do you have that turned on with your kids?
I absolutely do. So this works where a kid, they want to purchase something or a free download, a request pops up on mine and my wife's devices. You can set who they go to. We have both of them. And we as the parents have to approve of that purchase or download. So it not only protects our debit card from getting run up, but it also is a way that we can understand what our kids are doing on that iPad. Now, of course, you can just hide the App Store entirely through the parental controls that we're not talking about today. But if you want it visible and you want them to be able to do this, the Ask to Buy feature is really great. And you can set it up, like I said, where the family organizer has to do it or other trusted adults who are over 18 with their date on their Apple ID. They can approve it as well. And it's pretty straightforward. The kid hits the button. They get a pop-up saying, you have to ask permission for this. And then the parents get a notification on all of their devices saying, hey, Timmy is trying to download Carrot Weather. Is that something that you want to let Timmy do? You approve it, and then their device downloads it for them. So it's pretty seamless and pretty quick.
Yeah, I'm just imagining like Stephen Hackett's parents, if time were shifted, where all parents are worried about, their kids want to get access to, so many coins on this game, where little Steven just wants access to all radar data in Carrot Weather.
That's right. I want the most expensive Carrot Weather.
Still have to ask.
Yep. And I think this is great. It is an excellent feature. And it has some of the other kind of family sharing stuff built in. So if they ask to download a previous purchase again, installs an update, that sort of thing, it all just happens. And if you decline the request or you miss the notification basically expires after 24 hours. So the child will have to make the request again. So you're not going to be incessantly bothered by your kid trying to download Carrot Weather.
Yeah. And I don't use this personally anymore, but when I was using it, it worked flawless. We never had a situation where it didn't work. Occasionally I would have an upset child because I didn't respond fast enough.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Usually for us, it's the notification. And about 3 seconds later, a kid's like, hey, let me download this. I need it for school.
Yeah. Yeah. Do they really though?
Well,
really need it for
depends
school?
on what it is, but it's a good feature. And sort of the other part of this, and we talked about a second ago, is screen time, that you can review and manage screen time settings for devices signed in with a kid's Apple ID. You can share reports with everyone. This is the only thing in this, and maybe it's better now because I haven't tried it in iOS 13, but when I tried this about a year ago under iOS 12, the screen time sharing stuff seemed pretty busted. And so I haven't used it since. Maybe it's better now, but it's not something that they were using. Again, I'm using the parental controls and screen time just locally on that iPad. And if my kids had multiple devices, I'd probably turn to this so I could manage it centrally. But for me, I don't really need this, so it's off. But it can be a really nice feature to see how other people in your family group are using their devices over time.
Yeah, and this is the newest feature and clearly the one that I think needs the most work. Something I could note, if your child just recently turned 18, as I've had happen, you no longer have access to their screen time.
Yeah, again, you don't want to lie about your kid's age because these things are timed to these things. And I think, that's a great decision. What they want to do.
I mean, I hadn't looked in long. I just realized that. Okay, well, I guess.
Oh, yeah.
I guess I don't need to know now.
Yeah, or she just threw her phone in the river. One of the two things.
Yeah.
Open Find My, see what the phone is.
Yeah.
So that's sort of the Apple ID and kid thing. And again, in the old system, there really wasn't a great way if you wanted your kid to have their own Apple ID. You had to set the age to be higher than 13, or you had to go through all these hoops. And now it really incentivizes people to use family sharing because it's all built in and supported.
Yeah. There's a lot to love about it. There's still a few things you want to change, though.
There is. We will get to that after this break. This episode of Mac Power Users is brought to you by Health IQ. At some point over the last couple of years, you've probably created or maintained a healthy habit. Things like getting enough sleep, working out on a regular basis, trying to eat the right foods, trying to stop eating the wrong foods, which are different things that are not equally difficult. If you want to live that healthy lifestyle, you could be rewarded for your hard work with more affordable rates on your life insurance. You save up to like 41%, which is a whole bunch of money. Just take the Health IQ quiz, and they walk you through the entire process of applying. Their policy is underwritten by one of their top insurance partners, and there will always be a real person at the other end of the phone who you can talk to, you can ask questions of when making these decisions. The savings are exclusive to Health IQ. You won't find them anywhere else, but you have to qualify to get that special rate. For me, this has been all about diet and exercise, trying to get some things in my health sort of back on track. And when you do that, you think about your health a lot. And for me, it's something that is just on the forefront of my mind every day now. And with Health IQ, you can be rewarded for that sort of thing. So to qualify, go to healthiq.com/MPU to take the proprietary Health IQ quiz. Depending on your score, as well as other qualifying factors, you can save up to 41% on your life insurance premiums compared to other providers. Again, that's healthiq.com/MPU to let them know that we sent you and to start the process with the Health IQ quiz. There's no commitment, and you'll learn a lot more about potential opportunities to be rewarded for your commitment to living healthy. Once again, that's healthiq.com/MPU. Our thanks to Health IQ for their support of the Mac Power Users and all of Relay FM.
I feel like I have some guilt about family sharing because I still hear from listeners who tell me, oh yeah, I haven't used that ever since you wrote about how terrible it was. And that was that was a long time ago. It was like over 5 years ago. And it really has come a long way. I feel like family sharing is something I could actively endorse right now. That doesn't mean it's perfect. And, I'd like to talk about some of the ways that we'd personally like to see Apple kind of improve on it.
The biggest single one for me has to be shared photo libraries. You said it perfectly. You and your spouse have photo libraries that overlap in weird ways and that are like ships passing in the night. And the way I deal with this is if we're at a family event, like a kid's birthday party, and I take a bunch of pictures, then I just airdrop. Like I take all my pictures, airdrop them to Mary, pick up her phone, airdrop them, the one she took, back to me, but try not to like overlap where I'm airdropping the photo back to myself. It is a mess. And I don't know how you completely solve it in the UI. Like maybe your spouse's library shows up as like a top level item in Photos, and then you can go into it and then you see all there. Like there's got to be some way to do this, but Google Photos has solved this issue if you use their service. Other photo apps, when they were around, did this. Apple is late to the game, and it is just is a real point of frustration, like on a pretty regular basis for me.
Yeah, well, I want to talk about that a little bit in terms of how do you solve it? Like, the flip side of the problem is, your wife and you don't share libraries, and sometimes that's for good reason.
Sure.
My wife will take a lot of pictures of merchandise that she may want to buy someday or something. I don't want to see that in my library. So if Apple called you up and said, Stephen, we listened to MPU, fix it for us, what would you want?
I think I would do a couple of things. One, I would have my wife's photo library be a separate UI item in the Photos app. So if I launch Photos, I'm in my library and I have to choose to go into hers. So it could show up in that source list in the left-hand sidebar on the Mac or at the top level in iOS. I don't want shared photo library to mean that we use the same library. What I want it to mean is that I can view her library and add things to mine or automatically share things, maybe like on a per album or event basis. I don't want it to be one intermixed photo library for the same thing you said, right? Like I take a bunch of screenshots of OS 10 and she doesn't want them all in her photo library. And, if you're purchasing a gift and you take a picture of something, there's lots of things you could spoil by sharing a photo library. And so I would want it to be a separate entity that I could go into and I could pull items from either automatically or manually.
I think one way I would like to see it done is, how you've got the little heart button. It's a very simple user interaction on the photos. You tap it, you favorite the photo, or you tap it to unfavorite. What if they just had the little iCloud family icon on that shows up on every photo? And you can just tap that, or maybe even put it on albums and photos, where anytime you tap that, it automatically puts it into a shared pool where everybody can access the full-size image. So you have to... So the default would be that it doesn't go into the shared album, which I think is probably the right default, but you can very easily add it to the shared album without any fancy jump. What I don't think we should have is logging into two different libraries or something. It needs to be something that's seamless.
Yeah, I can see that too. And that I would imagine would be actually an easier place to get to from where we are today, right? Just build on the shared album already.
And you've already got the image, like I said earlier, you've got the image stored in iCloud full size. So it's just like it's a 1 or a 0. Is this part of that family group or not? And then maybe in the library you've got that shared family album, but you can always add those pictures to different albums manually yourself if you want. I don't know. I feel like it's a solvable problem either way. And like you said, Google solved it. Apple needs to solve it. Every year we head up to San Jose, and I think maybe this will be the year we get family shared photo albums. I think, don't you guys have that as like a standing pick over on your podcast and what's going to happen this year?
Yeah, our connected predictions. I feel like it comes up every year.
Yeah.
I think either way they do it, either my way of sharing the whole library somehow or your way of sharing albums, I think full-size images have to be at the heart of it. Honestly, if they just fixed shared albums and just made it full-size images, I wouldn't complain about this near as much because then I could just create shared albums for stuff. But I don't want to downsize, the pictures I took at my kid's birthday party to share them. And so I rely on AirDrop for this, and it gets messy in a hurry. However they do it, though, I think privacy and security have to be at the heart of it. So you really understand, if I check this box, other people in my family can have access to my photos. I think, one, it would need to be on an individual basis. It should not just be off or on to the whole family. I think it should be that I want my spouse to see my photo library or whatever mechanism they use, but not my kids. Or I want my kids to see it, but not my spouse. I think that is critical for people feeling safe in this environment.
See, that makes it infinitely harder too.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Look, I'm just
the solution I had didn't solve that problem because I would have a one button that shares it with everybody.
Yeah. I mean, it could be, that when you do it, there's a screen that pops up and you get to check the boxes of who gets access to it. I mean, I don't have to write any code or push any pixels. So I'm just, waving my hands around in the sky. But I think that is a real key feature. And I think it fits in with the way Apple thinks about security and privacy. The other thing that I would want it to do is I would want whatever they do not to take up additional iCloud space. So you mentioned all these are on their servers. Just give me access to the same image. Don't ding me a second time for that 5 megabyte image. That feels like a real pipe dream, but I feel like I don't want to be held accountable for sharing one photo in two libraries. Like there's got to be some way to do that. The way it works in like Amazon S3, for instance, which is an online storage thing, is every file is hashed. And so if you upload a PDF to S3 and then I upload it to S3, Amazon doesn't hold on to two copies of that. It's one copy that we both have access to. And that feels like a solution. But again, I'm not developing any of this. So like, it's just features that I want. But I wouldn't want to run up my iCloud space by turning this on.
If done right, it would actually probably save space on iCloud.
Yeah.
Just as an example, we had a family event recently, and I always take, like, if people stand in front of me for me to take their picture, I routinely take like 10 pictures. Mm-hmm. It's just, a couple with a couple with portrait mode, a couple without, and, I just kept pushing the button. They don't know that I'm pushing that often. And my wife asked me to airdrop her a bunch of the pictures, and I hadn't had a chance to go through and pick the one from a bunch of those 10 shots. And I didn't want to be that guy, but I was thinking as I was sending her these, 50 pictures, of which I normally would keep 5. I was thinking, well, my iCloud's going to get hit with 50 pictures twice now,
Yep.
Because I didn't, and that's like, because the current system is when you do airdrop it, even though you get the full size image over and you're in family sharing, then she's going to save those 50 pictures and so am I. So we just doubled our storage and it adds up very quickly.
It does. And so those are all things that they have to deal with, right? Maybe this is why we haven't seen it yet, because this is really complicated. But when I think about families sharing in Apple's media ecosystem, so much of it is so good. And this is just like a giant crater in the middle of it.
Isn't it crazy though how many people use AirDrop now? It is so like common. Yeah. It's not a power user thing at all anymore.
No, I see it out in the world, right? Like just if I go out to dinner with friends and we're taking pictures, or it's I need that contact. Like people just know what AirDrop is, and that's great because it's a great feature and it's really robust. But yeah, I've noticed that too, that it is just out in the world now.
Yeah, my mother-in-law. We were at the event, and after we finished the event, my mother-in-law, who is not a young lady, she's telling me AirDrop. Come on, Sparky, give me the AirDrop.
Yeah.
or when we went on vacation, we jumped out of an airplane. They took some video of us, and they said, well, we can give you a disc, but if you have an iPhone, we'll just AirDrop it to you.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like, it just solves so many problems. I really am glad to see that's another technology that didn't start out super great, but it's become very stable and everybody uses it now.
Yep.
But that doesn't solve the problem we're talking about. So you're not off the hook, Apple.
Come on.
Yeah, the other big problem I have is the one I talked earlier about, this whole legacy platform thing. I think it's more of a lawyer problem than it is a technology problem. I'm guessing that they're just the licenses they have with all these content companies doesn't let them combine the media into a single account. But man, I wish it would.
Yep. It does feel like it's just paperwork. They've done so much of the Apple ID system over the years. I feel like this is just a thing that, maybe they're bound to some sort of purchasing agreement they signed a billion years ago, but it's fine.
You got to bet $1,000. 10 years from now, are you still going to have those two IDs, or are you going to have it to one?
10 years is a long time.
Yeah, that's why I'm asking.
I have faith that in 10 years they can fix it. So I'm betting one Pro Display stand that'll be fixed within a decade.
I'm not sure, man. I'm not sure.
It has been a long time. I
don't know. I think I'm more likely just to give up and start over again within the next 10 years than them fixing it.
We're 6 years into family sharing at this point. So
yeah,
5.5.
I guess one other thing I'd add to it is my kids are a little older. When we started talking about family sharing, my kids were in prime time for this stuff. But having, seeing them through their tweener and teen years, the family sharing was a really nice thing that we had. And once they got, the kinks worked out to it, now my kids are a little older. We have a family with a senior in high school and college kids and about to be 2 college kids. We still use family sharing. We like we share the shared calendar. It's fine. I don't mind, subsidizing their iTunes purchases at this point in their lives. And it's working for us beyond 18. And if you have older kids, this still is not something you want to ignore.
It doesn't just have to be kids, right? You can add siblings. I tried really hard to understand what Apple defines as a family, because Spotify and others have actually gotten heat in the past for like, everyone has to be at the same address, or you have to have this relationship or that relationship. And it may be buried in the support document somewhere. If it is, please let us know because we'll correct it. But best I can tell, and I've read way too much about this over the last week and a half, Apple doesn't define this. And so if I wanted to bring my brother and his wife in, or a cousin, like, it doesn't seem like Apple has any notions on how you do this. And so I've even thought about bringing my parents onto it, right? Like my mom.
I think that's ideal,
Yeah.
especially if they don't want to pay the $1 a month for their photo storage.
And like my mom is, and she also pays for Apple Music, I think, or at least I set her up with a trial. Like, so I've even thought about, in prepping this episode, that I have all the storage space. Maybe I open my family up to my parents so they can just, I know they're backed up. I know where they are. I know where their devices are. Like, that feels like something that I'm probably going to do as sort of follow up to this episode.
Yeah. Well, let us know how it goes. And
yeah,
if anybody out there has any further information on this, but I don't think Apple really cares.
I don't think they do either. I mean, I read about, all these links in the show notes, I read all of them, and I can't find how Apple defines a family.
Yeah. All right. Family sharing. It's a pretty good thing in 2020.
It is. I don't think there's anything to be afraid of here. I think it is a really solid system, and there's lots of perks and very few downsides.
Yeah. All right. We are the Mac Power Users. Thanks to our sponsors today, 1Password, Omni Group, Hover, and Health IQ. We've got the forums over at talk.macpowerusers.com. You can sound off about your family sharing experiences. Let us know. And we'll see you next week.